feels incredible to do that. And you never thought I'd say that. You just become used to all these luxuries in life, and where they're taken away from you for a year.
I know, it gets pretty wet. Yeah. So I see Jeff's here. Hi, Jeff. Are you sleepless or
Greetings. Am I what?
are you sleepless? You look a little fatigued. Have you been zooming all day? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was whiffed last Thursday after we were done with we were 2 hours of this, and I was whiffed. Who's Mar Miri? Hello. I don't know who that is.
I was done in on Tuesday, the day after I got my Pfizer vaccine. I had about 3/4 of the day where I was washed.
Yep. Tim was when he got his second Pfizer the following day. He says, "Oh, I'm okay." And I looked at him and he was flushed. I said, "You look flushed." And then I was doing something else. I came back, he was in bed. And he was just fatigued, and I felt him, and he was definitely feverish. And with me, with Moderna, I got
this drug for at least half the day. I could have crawled in bed if I hadn't been at the COP office.
There you go. Yeah, I gotcha.
I was in slow motion, that's for sure.
Yeah, I got the chills the second at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then was very fatigued the day after. But other than that, I was pretty good, and just happy to have it done. So yeah, so seeing your grandmother and seeing your family, that's a great thing. What you got.
Okay, well, this is recording, Mary Ellen, and I will let everybody know that before you kind of launch into everything.
Yeah, well, we've got, how much time do we have? 4 minutes to post time. Robin is back. Who is Mar Miri? That's new.
Hi, yes, I'm new.
Hi, you're new. Okay, nice to see you, or not see you. Thanks for joining us. So Robin was on last time, and she did listen a lot more than she's a newbie. Are you new to backpacking?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we went through a lot of stuff about gear last time. And one of the things we talked about doing is trying at some point to get together outside to, do a little gear share in person, so you can see what kind of gear we've been using. But we spent 2 hours on gear last time, and that is section 1, and we've got 10 sections of this. I don't know how much we're going to get through tonight, but we will try to power through best we can. It's a dense pack thing. But Matt, do you want to wait a little bit more before you talk about what Right on Trek has going?
Yeah, just a little bit. I will mention, Robin probably knows this, but Mar, this is being recorded. We put this on YouTube afterwards, our YouTube channel, so that people maybe, if they registered and couldn't come for some reason, they can view it later. So I just wanted to let you know it's being recorded.
Thank you.
And we do have a new partnership with a company called Right on Trek. They're going to have a wonderful cooking demo
I signed up
on April 3rd. It's a Saturday. It's online, but it costs $10, and you're going to see a real professional cook a couple meals in the backcountry, and so that'll be fun. So you can eat well and enjoy yourself even when you go on your backpacking trip.
Everything tastes good when you're backpacking.
That it does.
Hi, Sarah. How are you? She's connecting to audio now.
Hi, Sarah.
Yeah. Hi. Good. We're just talking about, well, let's see. Yeah, we've got 1 more minute.
I'll give it a few.
Yeah.
So you think that weekend in September might be a good weekend for you, Mary Ellen, to go to the Upper Peninsula?
It could work. It could work. I haven't checked against what's going on in my office yet, but thinking about, you don't want to go too early there because of black flies.
Yeah, and you don't want to go too late because in October it could snow.
There you go. Yeah. So
So
That's
anyway,
something
we'll
I like.
talk more about that in May, I guess, when Right on Trek comes to visit, but we'll get a date nailed down.
yeah, we do. And I see Dick Bartz is back.
It's
and he's
7
having-
o'clock.
He's having a snack, something. Where's your wife? You're muted. Is she joining us? No. There you go. Hi.
Hi.
Is she joining us this time?
Maybe.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see. So yes, I'm Mary Ellen O'Shaughnessy. We're going to try to power through as much as we can. Last session, we spent 2 hours talking about gear, and there are 9 other sections to this Backpacking 101. I doubt that we'll get through it all. However, we'll just go through as much as we can. I have to apologize in advance. I have some difficulty negotiating these screen shares from Backpacking Magazine. Sometimes they freeze up on me and they won't move, but so bear with me, but we will talk through it. But I think Matt, you need to talk a little bit about what we've got planned going forward with Right on Trek. Would you?
Not too much, but we just have a new partnership with a fun company called Right on Trek. They specialize in making meals for the backcountry, and we are going to have a demo. It's on our website, on our Facebook, a demo of backcountry cooking with 2 meals on Saturday, April 3rd. So if you want to sign up for that, you can. They have a lot more coming, and they're also building a gear portal for us so that if you're new to backpacking and you want to rent gear for your first time or two, you could do that. That's always advisable, either to rent or maybe borrow your first time or two, because you're just getting a feel for what you like, and doesn't make any sense usually to go out and buy a $300 backpack until you know sort of what you like.
Right.
And so borrowing and renting are advised the first few times.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Or maybe just the back. I don't know. Sometimes the backpacks have come down in price, which is kind of nice. Yeah, but as I said last week, I went out and bought a backpack I thought was really nice, and it didn't fit me. And, it took me some time to figure that out. The one I've got now really does fit me. That whole thing about making sure you got the proper torso size is very important. And sometimes it's good to spend a little extra bucks to get one of the higher end models. It might last longer, it might feel better, but it's most important that the backpack feels like a part of your body. So,
and go to somebody who will spend, go on early on a Saturday or Sunday morning, go to somebody who will spend a little time with you trying to fit you to a backpack, because, it's not like a pair of socks. You really need to spend 15 or 20 minutes trying it out to see if it's going to fit. And a good outdoor shop like REI with a knowledgeable person in there who can spend 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour with you is going to make a huge difference.
REI does a real good job. They usually do, and they'll put stuff in the pack so you can feel what it feels like with weight on, which is most important. And you get it to fit properly. They go through a whole thing about fitting a backpack in here. I think we may have gone over it already, but I think we left off with water. There she is, and so we'll try that. In the meanwhile, you guys are tiling up on the right, which means I can't get to my. I have to figure out how to do this here. Can you still see all that? Yeah, I think I've got you. I've got it. I think I've got it now. Let's see. Okay. So this is about water treatment. Let's do this. We're going to talk about water for just a little bit. Is this okay? Everybody's good? We're going to start with water.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. Now let's see if I can actually scroll down here. What's important to note here when it comes to water is that there are they talk about several ways you can treat your water. You can boil your water, but you have to make sure you're boiling it well. I've had Giardia twice, by the way, so it's nothing to trifle with. And sometimes you think, oh, I'm good. I was on a big hike, a 10-day hike in Switzerland. And every time I walked into a village, they had a lovely fountain in the middle of the little village. And I thought, well, that'll be great water and I won't need to treat it. And I didn't. And by the time Giardia takes a while to catch on, but by the time I got home, it was the real deal. So definitely be careful about your water. And there's no water here you can drink out of a stream. Don't let anybody fool you on that. So boiling water is one thing you can do at night, but just be careful about that. A lot of people carry the Aqua Mira drops, and those are good. I don't like the taste, so I don't carry those. I use a Sawyer filter system, which is kind of new, relatively inexpensive, and works well. The only thing you have to be careful you don't freeze it. And then there's ultraviolet light, which is like a SteriPen. Anybody use a SteriPen here? I have a SteriPen. I like it a lot, but I've been sort of trending towards the Sawyer in recent days. So that's worked out well for me. Anyway, these are all things that you have to think about and when you're doing your backpack planning for your trip, you got to figure out what your water sources are, how it's going to work. When we were in New Mexico, it was relatively arid. We had a hard time finding just little puddles of muddy water, and we had to do extra screening of the water to be able to drink it. Other places, when you're up in the mountains, oftentimes the water sources are frequent and fresh and lovely, and it makes it really easy to catch water to keep yourself hydrated. And sometimes you only have to take like a liter bottle and you put a Sawyer on top of it. But that's part of your planning, to see what water sources are available. So that's kind of water. And I'm going to see how quickly we can power through this, but wore me out last time, I'm telling you. Comfort gear, camp chairs, camp shoes are really important. Absolutely. When you get to the end of the day, you want to change your shoes out. And some people take camp chairs. I've given up on camp chairs. I don't do those anymore. My pillow is my stuff sack for my clothing. And it works out very well. And actually, Dick, we were talking about umbrellas. There's something about an umbrella here. Again, if you're using hiking poles like I do, and I believe they're essential, especially in some rough territory, because it's like having 2 extra feet. It's difficult to carry an umbrella. However, Six Moons Designs makes some beautiful umbrellas. They're usually for super sunny areas, and they have a little attachment you can attach it to your backpack. So it's an option, but I would say it would be mostly for sun. You really want to have some good rain gear if you're going into rainy territory. Say you're going into the rainy section of Oregon or Washington, you probably want to have, even the Wind River mountain range in Wyoming has thunder showers almost every afternoon.
Mary Ellen, what do you take for extra shoes? I always strap my sandals on the backside of my backpack, so when I get to camp, I can take my boots off.
Perfect. These are great. They're very lightweight. You can smash them down, and I just put them at the bottom of my pack. But they're washable, and you can use them actually for water shoes. If you have a stream crossing and you want to protect your feet, you change out your boots and you put something like that on, and then they dry really quickly. As Matt said, on the back of your pack, they dry out, and then you're good to go. So yeah, the camp shoes can also be water shoes, especially if they dry quickly. So a smart thing to think. Sometimes you get to a water crossing and you think, I can't jump this. I don't want to get my boots wet. I've got to take my shoes off. And that's, crossing a stream, this can be extremely dangerous for people who don't know what they're doing. You always undo your pack. So if you get pulled off your feet, your pack won't take you down, and you have to be uber careful. Going barefoot can be too painful, and you might fall down. So it's good to have something to protect your feet if you do have to do a stream crossing like that. And never cross if it's way too high on your legs.
I always used a stabilizing factor. I would take, if I was hiking with somebody, I would lock arms.
You can that's a technique you can do, and you go again. Not parallel, sideways to the stream the way the stream is going, and be very
If you have two people, it's much harder to dislodge two people.
absolute.
Got that weight, so it's nice to cross together.
It's smart. Yes, that's there's a lot written about that. So those are things to think about. Let's see what's next. Oh, the 10 essentials. Yes, you all know about the 10 essentials. This is a handout that they have at REI. It's good to have, just keep it around to remind yourself when you're packing. So you don't forget something. I remember one time I went out and I forgot my sleeping pad. That meant that the trip was toast. So it happens even when you've been doing it for 20 years. So these are the 10 essentials right here. Don't ever only rely for navigational purposes on your technology on your phone. I've got Gaia and all that stuff, but always have a paper map, because you don't know when that thing's going to crap out on you. We were I think we were in the winds on the first day, and I saw one or two young people up. Now all they had was their phone with all trails on it, and I thought, ooh, that's it's just not. You have to have a backup there, and if the technology is going to crap out on you, you want to make sure you've got a map and compass. Extra food, I talked about that last week. Make sure you've got like one, an extra meal, something, just in case you get off your plan. Always sun protection, and when you get high altitude, you really know that you need that. Absolutely. First aid kit, of course. Fire starter, yes. Insulation, yes. Headlamp. What else? Sun protection, insulation, illumination. You got to have a headlamp. First aid supplies, fire, repair kits and tools, nutrition, hydration, emergency shelter. And my husband, who is new to backpacking, but wasn't so new to some other things, he put tuxedo and handmade Italian loafers on this. He's learning backpacking. So there you are. Anyway, let's see if we can move on here. Ultralight considerations, they talk about where you can cut. You learn this over time. Every time you get back as a newbie, you should take everything out of your pack and see what you didn't use, as much as you kind of wanted to use it. Remember, we were talking about camp chairs? I didn't, if you don't use it, why carry it? And nobody that's with us today is getting any younger. And as you get older, you want to have a lighter pack. It just makes life a lot easier going down the trail. Ultralight shelters, hammocks and tarps. I'm kind of a tarp fan, and I've got several tarps I can show you that I could actually share. I also have a hammock, but my hammock is for one person, and I am now married and teaching my husband how to backpack. So my hammock is probably not going to get out, but I love it. It's a Hennessy hammock. You can only use hammocks in very warm temperatures. If it gets down there, you're going to be cold. And they're trying to do things to bolster the warmth factor in hammocks, but I can't imagine that it would work very well. So yeah, it's and it's tiny. It's wonderful, but not terribly practical for backpacking. Tents. You know about tents. We talk about tents. They want you to make sure you got your tent dry before you pack it away. But when you're out on the trail, you can, get it as dry as you can. But sometimes it's a little damp when you put it up. But never put it away after a trip when it's even a little bit damp. Always get it out and make sure you give it a little air. Let's see, sleeping bags. We talked about that. You know that you don't pack your sleeping bag in the case that you pack it in your backpack. You always put it in an extra large sack, because you don't want to lose the loft in your sleeping bag. Do not pack it in a tiny stuffed sack or a compression sack. Always put it like it's about a pillowcase size. Bag, so that it has room to breathe and you don't lose the loft on it. The loft is what keeps you warm. Packs, clean and dry. I don't know if you could see my pack right now, you'd see how clean it is, but never mind. They're being very good about these things. Let's see, cleaning gear and washing down. Okay, let's go to the next section. Next section, knowing your pack. This is interesting. This is again, we're still in gear, but we
When you're carrying 30 pounds or
go.
more on your back, having a well-fitted and adjusted backpack makes all the difference. If that pack is hanging all over the place, it makes balancing on the trail a lot harder
Yes.
and makes your shoulders and spine pretty unhappy. So in this section, we'll go over how to choose the pack that's right for you, how to pack it properly, and how to fine-tune adjustments for your body type. Let's get started. When packing your pack, it's important to follow the ABCs of pack packing. A is for accessibility, B is for balance, C is for compact, and D is for dry. Keeping those in mind, I'm going to start fitting all of my gear into my backpack. In terms of keeping things dry, you've got a couple options. A lot of backpacks will come with a pack cover, which is basically a rain jacket for your backpack, or you can purchase one in addition to your pack. I prefer to use a heavy-duty trash bag as a liner inside my backpack. I've found that sometimes these pack covers don't always cover the entirety of my back, and then water can seep into my pack anyway. So by using this bag within a bag method, I've been able to keep all of my stuff dry in some really wet climates. Now, in determining what to put in my bag first, I'm going to focus on A, accessibility, and B, balance. I don't want to pack something I'm going to need while I'm hiking on the trail in the very bottom of my bag. So something like my sleeping bag, I'm not going to need during the day. Also, when I'm trying to pack a balanced bag, it's important that I have a broad base of support down on the bottom, and my sleeping bag will give me that. You'll notice that I have a zipper here for a sleeping bag compartment. I'm not using that zipper just because I have my trash bag inside my bag. You are welcome to just use this as a designated sleeping bag compartment. And you'll notice while I pack my bag that I'm really stuffing my sleeping bag deep down in there. If there's a spot where I don't have anything in my backpack, it's going to look wrinkly and empty like this. So I'm going to stuff things down to fill those empty spaces. When I think about weight distribution, I want most of the heavy things in my backpack to be towards the center of my back so that I'm holding it where my body is strongest. The heaviest things that I have to pack are my food and my kitchen gear. All my food here, it's already been distributed between me and the people that I'm going hiking with. And I've got all these little tiny kitchen things that I can actually just pack inside my pot. This pot is an example of what I call dead space. So if I were to pack my pot just like this, then I've got all this space that's not being taken up by any of my gear. So I can put my fuel bottle, my stove, soap, eating utensil, and lighter all inside that pot, and that's going to help save me a lot of space. I'm going to put this pot, which has some heft to it now, right on top of my sleeping bag. And instead of just setting it on top of my sleeping bag, I'm really going to push it on down there. Food is going to be pretty heavy. Because I've got Ziploc bags, which can be slightly fragile, I want to make sure that the Ziploc bags aren't packed next to the edges of my pot, which could be slightly sharp. So I'll start with things like my peanut butter, my summer sausage, and my tomato paste, which can't really be ruptured by that pot. And I'm keeping those bulkier items like the peanut butter and the summer sausage really close to the back of my pack, which means it's going to be closer to my back. If I packed it close to the front of my pack, then it might pull me over backwards. Every time I put something new in my backpack, I'm looking at the outside of my pack for any of those wrinkly, empty looking spaces that I can stuff something else in there to fill. Next, I'm going to pack my sleeping pad. Again, it's something that I don't need during the day, and it's kind of an awkward shape, which means I want to pack it really soon in my packing process. That way I can bring soft things like my clothes down and around the edges that it'll leave. Next, I'll pack my tent. My backpack is big enough that I could probably just pick up my tent and put it in my backpack. But if I had a smaller bag or if I was limited on space, it might be smarter to pack my tent outside of this bag. What that enables me to do is stuff the soft parts of my tent in those dead space areas. Visualize a bag of sugar versus a bag of potatoes. The bag of potatoes has a lot of air space inside that bag, and the bag of sugar is going to be a little bit more svelte and compact. So I'm going to go ahead and take this giant potato and turn it into a bag of sugar inside my pack. Tent poles can be a kind of tricky thing to pack. You can either try and stuff them to the side of your pack on the inside, or you can always strap them to the outside, whatever you prefer. Because I have such a big pack for what I'm doing here, I'm going to go ahead and stuff them down on the inside. Next up, I'm going to pack my water filter. This is something I might want accessible during the day, so I'm actually going to put it in my outside pack. Now, I left my clothes till last because they're soft, so they're easy to stuff down into those dead air spaces. I'll start with these smaller items like gloves and socks, because again, they're pretty easy to push all the way into the deep recesses of my pack. Now, there's two types of backpackers. There's people who fold their clothes very nicely, and then there's people like me who just tend to stuff things wherever they happen to fit. Either one is totally fine. And I actually want to leave my rain jacket out and accessible because that's an item that I might need right away. Another warm jacket, cram her on down in there. The last item I'm going to pack in the main compartment of my backpack is my water bladder. The reason I left this till last is because it's something I might need to refill throughout the day, so I want it to be accessible. If it's all the way down in the bottom of my pack with my other heavy things, I'm going to need to unpack and then repack everything throughout the day. Now, anytime you're using a water bladder, there is a risk of the bladder either leaking or popping. And if this one does that today, I don't want it to get anything in this pack wet. So I'm going to fold down my trash bag to make a barrier between my water bladder and everything that I want dry. And then I'll just set this bladder on top of everything in the main compartment of my pack. So now I can go ahead and seal up all my drawstrings and straps on that main compartment because I'm done with it. A lot of backpacks have an integrated water pouch holder. They take up a lot of space right through the main part of my pack, and I would rather use that space for my items to be well balanced and distributed. These items that I still have are items that I am definitely going to need through the day. I've got my rain jacket, I've got my compass, a snack, a trowel, my headlamp, a sun hat, first aid kit, and maybe a warm layer just in case it gets cold. So these are things that I'm not going to need to stop on the trail and explode everything in my pack just to get to these simple things. They're going to go in the top compartment of my pack, which is called the brain.
It's the first time I've heard brain.
And my brain's actually a little bit small for what I have out. So my first aid kit, I'm going to go ahead and put in my front pouch with my water filter. Now I'm going to revisit my C, compact. You'll see I've got a lot of straps just hanging out around my pack. And if I pull these tight, I can make my pack even smaller. Now I'll buckle my brain down so it doesn't tip back and hit me in the head while I'm hiking. All right, and then I'm kneeling on my sleeping pad. I'm gonna bring it with me, even though I packed an inflatable pad, just to give me something to sit on at camp. And it just folds up nice and small and straps to the bottom of my pack on the outside. The fact that this pack is sitting up by itself is a really good sign. It means that it's well balanced. And a well balanced pack is one that's going to sit well on your back. If my pack was leaning to one side, it would also lean to one side while it's on my body, meaning I'm going to be walking slightly lopsided or be more sore on one side than the other. So when you leave camp in the morning, you always want to make sure that that pack is able to stand upright on its own. And that's how you know you're in for a good day of hiking.
Questions? She'll go through, she does a very nice job here of explaining all the adjustments you can do on your pack.
Yeah.
I get more questions about that. Did you have a question, Dick?
I do, Annette.
What?
A couple things. The first thing I want, they're not questions. I just wanted to say something.
Yeah.
We carry an old CD disc that can be
Reflect.
reflective so that in case something happens,
Yeah.
you can signal somebody that you're there.
They go through that. Yes, you can get a mirror too, which is
Yeah,
a good way to signal. Also carry a whistle.
yes.
That's
And then the other thing we do, partly because we can share the tent, we have a separate bag for our fly because the fly is the thing that's always wet. And we put the fly in that bag and then split the tent up. But that keeps it away from your tent, so your tent's not wet.
There you go. Very good. Those are all good points. Now, one thing I want to point out is that it's really good to have your tent relatively accessible and to quick to get to, because if you're stopping, you get to the end of your designated miles for the day and it's raining, you want to get your tent up quickly. You get your tent up and you can put your stuff inside it rather than having to take everything out to get to the bottom to get to your tent. So that's a smart thing to do. Let's see what's next. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, she put the fly inside with the clothes and stuff.
I know. The thing is, yeah, I do it a little differently. But like I said, I have a stuff sack that acts as a pillow for my clothing. I also have a stuff sack that is for food, but oftentimes I'm using a bear canister, a small bear canister. So everybody does this a little bit differently. You got to figure out what works for you. I thought her pack is pretty big for her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And again, I have a few more years on me than she does, so maybe I don't want to carry as much weight.
But
Ellen, I think, I saw her packing that pack and it's sort of like Santa Claus. You can get a lot more in a pack than you think. It's like when you have to pack a car for a vacation, you just keep stuffing things in around the edges and a lot of stuff will go in your pack. But you'll realize after the first trip or two that you might not need all of that stuff. You might thin out a little bit.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's what happens. Yeah. You take way too much when you're a newbie. And then you come home, you take it all apart and you realize what you've used and what you haven't used. And, you start winnowing it down and figuring out a way to save weight. Okay. Let's see what's next. Anybody else?
yeah, do you try to strap your tent to the outside of your pack?
I have occasionally either strap it or I've got a little area here on mine. See where I can put it. I can put it in there. Also, sometimes I put a water bladder in there if I'm not using a liter bottle and a Sawyer. It just really depends. It's highly variable for me. I've got all sorts of options. I really like using the water bladder, but right now they need to be cleaned and the last time I used them, they didn't taste so good. So I'm thinking about possibly re-upping and getting some new stuff. But water bladders are it's very easy to make sure that you're getting enough hydration. Especially, God, it still gets so hot here anymore. We were out in Pennsylvania hiking and it was blistering hot and I wasn't drinking enough water. I started to feel not so hot. No, too hot, let's say. But it's important to pay attention to hydration when you're out doing this activity. You forget how much fluid you actually lose. So let's see what's next. Okay, yeah, she's pretty much doing the same thing I think that she just did. So I think we should see if we can move this along here. Ay. There we go. There we are. How to pack. See, she's doing it still. This is stuff she's already gone over. I have an interior stuff sack that I do use. I also have an exterior one. that I use. I think it's a smart thing to do because I've got a down sleeping bag, and that really cannot get wet. So I really make sure that that's in a waterproof bag. See if I,
You have an interior stuff sack?
yeah, interior, is it right here? See, let's see if I've got it in here. I don't have much of my gear.
She was using a trash bag of some sort.
Yeah, she was calling it a trash bag. It looks like a trash bag. Mine's actually waterproof. It's a big stuff sack that's designed for lining a pack about, the size of this pack.
Okay.
It works very well. And again, you don't want your stuff to get wet. Okay, I'm going to back up again and try going forward here. Oh crap. See, there's a bar there. Oh crap. There. Yeah, this is it goes along just fine until it doesn't. And I'm not able to get to the next pack. Excuse my French. I have to be able to see you guys and do this too. There we go. See that little thing right there? That's what I have to get, and I can't always get it. Filling dead space. She talked about that. Distributing weight. She talked about that. A lot of this is getting into the details about all that stuff that we've already talked about. This I think you'll enjoy. This is all about, I always get questions from people about how to adjust your pack, and oftentimes I see people out on the trail who don't have haven't made full use of all the adjustment capabilities on their pack. This is good stuff.
So now that your pack is packed, it's time to get into adjusting the fit of your pack. And we do this after there's weight in your backpack because it's going to sit a lot differently on your body with weight in it than it did when it was empty at the gear store. We'll start with the most obvious. That's the hip belt down at the bottom. This is what's going to hold the bulk of the weight of your pack around the lower part of your body. Also on the hip belt is a micro adjustment strap, which will bring the base of your pack, where most of the weight sits, closer to your hips. Then I've got my shoulder straps. Shoulder strap adjustments are right down here. And then moving up the shoulder strap is my load lifter. The load lifter works exactly the same way that this micro adjustment strap does. It brings the bulk of the weight closer to your body. Then I've got my haul loop. The haul loop is important to know about because this is the loop you're going to want to use when you're carrying your pack when it's not on your back. A lot of people will just haul their pack around using one shoulder strap. And what that does is it puts a lot of wear and tear on that strap and reduces the longevity of your investment into your backpack. So always remember to use the haul loop when you're carrying your pack around. And last but not least, you have your sternum strap, which goes across the front of your body and prevents your shoulder straps from slipping off your shoulders and helps with the stabilization of your pack. Now I'll put my backpack on, and the first step is to make sure that your straps are fairly loose all throughout. If your straps are really tight, then it's going to be a lot harder to wiggle your way into your backpack, especially since it's fairly heavy. Obviously, I've got a conveniently located table here. It's also pretty much the perfect height to put my pack on. Normally, this pack would be down on the ground. And if it's heavy, I find that it's more useful for me to hoist the pack onto my knee first and then put it on. So I'll start by looping my hand underneath my haul strap and then getting my elbow underneath the shoulder strap. From here, I can get the pack onto the center of my back and move my arm underneath the other strap. Get the weight of the pack centered on your body. First strap I'm going to adjust is my hip belt. And I want the middle of my hip belt to meet my iliac crest. That's the bony part of your hip. So if you point to that bony part of your hip bone, that is where the very middle of your hip belt should go. So sometimes you might have to hoist the pack up a little on your back and lean over to get the hip belt there. Then you'll buckle, and placing one hand on the hip belt, one hand on the strap, you'll slide that strap into place to get it sitting on those hips. And ultimately, you want about 80%
There
of
you
the
go.
weight of your pack on these hips. The next strap to adjust are your shoulder straps. And these are down below here. So I'm just gonna pull on them slightly. And I like to do every other right and left because that's gonna make sure that they're even. And I get really uncomfortable if one strap is a lot looser than the other. You're gonna start walking lopsided if you do that. So nice, slow, careful adjustments here. When my shoulder straps are fitted properly, they should be about 2 fingers snug between the strap and the shoulder, and that'll change in just a second. Now I'll go down to this micro adjustment on my hips and just pull these straps forward, bringing the bulk of the weight of my pack closer towards my hips. Next are my load lifters, and these are really hard to see unless you already know where they are. And these ones I'll just pull forward on, and that's gonna bring the weight of my pack further forward. It also lifted some of my shoulder strap up. So now I can easily slide 2 fingers underneath my shoulder straps. And here on my load lifter strap, you'll notice that I have a 45-degree angle at the connection of the strap to the backpack. And that's ideal because it takes a lot of the weight off of my shoulder strap. And nobody wants these straps just slicing into your shoulders all day long. And the last strap to adjust is your sternum strap. It's gonna buckle just across the top of your chest. For women, this is just above your bust line. And you can tighten it a little bit. The sternum strap doesn't need to be super tight. You're not trying to get your shoulder straps to touch one another in the center of your body. You're just trying to prevent your shoulder straps from slipping off your shoulders and help with that stabilization of your pack. Now, if you're hiking and you notice your fingers are getting a little bit numb, it might mean that your sternum strap is a little bit too tight and it's cutting off the circulation of the blood flow to your arms. While you're hiking throughout the day, items are gonna shift in your backpack, which is gonna offset the weight a little bit. So you'll find yourself making little micro adjustments all throughout the day as you're hiking, and that's totally normal. What fit perfectly when you left camp in the morning is probably not gonna fit well after a nice big lunch halfway through the trail. And you'll notice that depending on the terrain, you might adjust your pack as well. When I'm hiking uphill, I'm hunched forward a little bit more. So I might loosen those shoulder straps and just hunch forward. And sometimes if I'm on more uneven terrain, I'm just gonna tighten everything down a little bit more than I normally would. Now to take my pack off, the first step is gonna be to loosen all of those straps. Again, this is for maneuverability purposes so that you're able to really wiggle in and out of the pack. So I've unbuckled my sternum strap and my hip belt. And again, I'm probably gonna lower the pack onto my knee before lowering it down onto the ground. But I'll start by threading one arm through my shoulder strap. So then I'll slowly move my pack to the front of my body and lower it to either my knee or whatever surface it's going to go on before I unthread my arm from the other strap. Taking the time to make sure that your pack fits well and is adjusted to the weight that you've got in your pack is going to make all the difference in the feeling of your back at the end of the day. Instead of feeling sore when you crawl into your sleeping bag at night, you'll actually be able to enjoy the entirety of your backpacking trip.
Nice. Any questions? I think this was extremely informative to see exactly how your pack works. And you know, when you're going downhill, oftentimes because you're carrying so much weight, you know, when you're going downhill, oftentimes you want to loosen up those shoulder straps just a little bit and just get it a little bit off your back so that you're balancing your weight. And other times when you're going up, you want to tighten them up. So yeah, you know, you've got all those adjustments there. Use them also when you take your pack off. Undo most of them. You're going to need to adjust them every time anyway. So that makes sure it gets done. No questions? We're going to move on. Okay. Yeah. She talked about this on trail adjustments, adjusting your pack. Oh God, I'm missing the damn thing again here. Let's see here. Excuse my French as I see. That's what I'm looking for. There we go. Okay, we've gone through these things. Okay, now we're going to go to trip planning. Yay.
So you've got the right gear and you're motivated to get out and explore. But one of the most important aspects of backpacking is planning a trip that's appropriate for you and your group. A well-planned trip can make the difference between smiles on day 4 and running out of food on day 2. So in this section, we'll teach you everything you need to know about trip planning. We'll go over how to choose a campsite, how to decide how much food and water to bring, how to plan in the case of an emergency, and so much more. Let's get started.
Safety considerations. Let's see if I can catch that bar again here. There we are. Okay. She's saying, leave your plan with someone at home and make sure to include a freak out time so that they know when they should call search and rescue or other agencies if they haven't heard from you. You know about this. Anytime you go out, you should make sure somebody knows where you're going, right? And that they have the name and the address, the name and the phone number for the Forest Service where you're going in. So, and they like this idea of you carrying one of those geo things, a spot, right? A personal location device. These devices run the gamut of capabilities. They can be several $100s. I haven't bought one yet, but that's to use in case you really do get in trouble. If you break your leg out 20 miles into a trail, that kind of stuff. So, and so it's a peace of mind. It's an insurance policy. So, so make sure people know where you're going and when you're going to come out, and make sure you call them when you get out, because if you tell them if they don't hear from you within 24 hours that they need to start trying to figure out where the hell you are. You should know location specific hazards in the area you'll be traveling. Are bears a problem? We talked about that a little bit. What about poisonous plants? What about snakes? My son, we were out backpacking with him and a friend, and the kid was in front of me, and we went down into a stream bed. This is just down in Southern Ohio, and it was a big kid. And he stepped, and I realized he had just stepped on a copperhead, which reared up to come after me right afterwards. So, you want to be careful and be prepared for any kind of emergency like that. So, and I've been known to get chiggers down in Southern Ohio as well as ticks. So you make sure. I've been using pyrethrin. Is it pyrethrin on my clothing? I think that works really well to repel bugs and ticks, keep them off you. But you should always do at the end of the day, especially in Ohio and environs around here, do an end of the day tick check, because you don't want to get a Lyme disease.
Mary Ellen,
Yes.
how often do you notify a ranger before you head out someplace deep? Do you do that often?
It's good to check in because you don't know. Sometimes there are specifics on a trail that you don't know about. So we get used to kind of, getting out of here and jumping on a trail, but it's really good, especially if you're going out with several people and you're the trip leader, to touch base with the Forest Service or the ranger. Call them up and say, hey, I'm taking 3 or 4 people out, in Shawnee. Is there anything I need to know? We're going to be doing the North Loop. And they'll tell you. So it's just kind of smart to do that. Where you do, when you get into some of the heavily used Western trails, sometimes the first day on a big hike, you'll see rangers out on the trail, making sure that you've got bear protection, because as they say, a fed bear is a dead bear. And, if they get your food, they're fed, and then they become habituated to humans, then they really become dangerous. So in some of these places, bear canisters and bear protocols are mandatory. Of course, don't tell any through hikers that, because they sleep with their food, which I think is completely idiotic, but they do. That's what they do. But we'll talk about that another time. But yeah.
Some places out west have sign-in things at the trailheads as well.
Yes, there's actually, if you go down to Zaleski Backpack Trail or Shawnee, they want you to sign in. They want you to know that they want to know who's there. They also use that to get funding to take care of the trail and take care of the amenities that they have there for you. For instance, the Laurel Highlands Trail, definitely sign in there because, they've got things that need to be taken care of and they need to have the funding to do it. Shawnee and all the other trails around in Ohio, definitely make sure you sign in so they know you're there, and tell somebody else as well. Let's see, what else? Bailout possibilities. Yes, that's a good idea. Remember what I told you, what I had I had my great inexpensive shoes and I went to some expensive shoes and lost my toenails. I was sore as hell. My feet hurt like hell. And I was down in Shawnee and I happened to know because I had a nice map that I could run down this way and catch a forest road and roll back to my car, actually limp back to my car.
What kind of maps do you consider nice maps?
Well, if you go down, oh shoot, can you see my maps on the wall here?
I can see something back there, yeah.
That's the Tetons. Yeah, you definitely want the topo map. She talks a little bit about this.
Okay.
At the backpack trailheads here in Ohio, they usually offer a map for you to pick up. You can also get them online and it'll show you specifically where things are. And they're usually semi-topo. Shoot, we just went down to Zaleski over the weekend and did the 9-mile northern loop. They have, they didn't have any at the trailhead because it's so popular right now. That stuff is just flying off the shelves. So yeah, you make sure you have a map. Don't, make sure you get some detail there and make sure especially if you're not that familiar with the trail, that you've got the information to make wise choices. Anybody else? Let's move on. Let's see if we can get to the place where she's talking about topo maps. A sample route plan. There you go. Actually, I can show you one. I got one right here. A friend of mine, we're going to the Wind River mountain range. This is a guy that I've been backpacking with for 20 years. And he's proposing a trip, and it doesn't have a whole lot of detail in it, but he's figured out how much we can do and what we can see. We'll get up close to 3 glaciers and have tremendous views of the Gannett Peak in the Wind River mountain range. That's kind of what you're talking about here. And it's good to kind of figure it out. It's smart planning. Don't just kind of follow your nose. You can when you're alone, especially if you've done the route before. But yeah, when you're getting into serious territory, it's good to have a plan down. And that's also something you can give to someone to have on hand, so they kind of know where you are. Say, remember we were talking about Eva who broke her leg out at Clear Creek. Had she been on a backpack and they knew that day 2 she would be, they knew where she was going to be stopping, they might be able to find her more readily. Let's see, what do we have here? Let's see what she says. Oh, food and water.
One of the most common questions I get asked, and one of the most important decisions you will make, is how much food and water to take with you. Here's a few things to keep in mind when you're making those decisions. In the backcountry, while working hard, you should be aiming to drink about 3 to 4 liters of water per day. I don't know about you, but when I'm at home, I definitely do not drink 3 to 4 Nalgene's per day. So when I'm backpacking, I bring a bladder that I can constantly sip on while I'm hiking. I also bring enough water treatment to get me through my trip, plus a little bit of extra, just in case something spills or breaks inside my pack. In terms of food, make sure you're packing enough. I always say it's better to have and not need all of your food than to need and not have enough food. Mm-hmm. Trust me, nobody wants to be hangry while traveling on the trail. Think of your body as a machine. You've got to put something in order to get something out of that machine. What you're putting in is calories, and what you're getting out is energy. These calories should come from high quality sources like proteins and complex carbs. You're going to have more energy not only on the trail, but to make decisions. I eat and drink constantly on the trail. This means I still have energy when I get to camp, and it keeps me happy throughout the day.
Oh yeah, I have bonked. I'm assuming that most of you bike and you know what bonking is. You know what bonking is, right? I bonked in the Wind River. I think it was the first trip. I was trying to be very careful about weight and I didn't put enough calories in. And, when you get into elevation, you really need to make sure you've got as many calories as, as you can possibly stuff in. And I bonked. I felt horrible. And I've been with friends who bonked. That's another, when I know I'm going up high and I'm going to be out long, I usually pack at least one Snickers bar per day for that 4 o'clock low. And I had this friend, she bonked, and we're on the trail, and you could tell she was bonked. I was trying to give her a Snickers bar, and she refused that Snickers bar. She said, "No, no, I won't take it." She was gone. I mean, she was talking about hangry. Yes, that's where we were. But you can tell, when you start feeling that way, that it's time to eat something. I was just out. We just did that 9 miler. We were only out for 4 hours, but at hour 3, I was kind of feeling like, you know what, I'm out of shape here. And I'm feeling like, and I packed an apple and I ate that apple and I felt so much better. And that's only here in Ohio, so yeah.
Mary Ellen, when you do your day hikes,
Yes.
you said you did 9 miles. Do you usually
Yes.
take a pack with you as practice?
A lot of people do that. If you have a new pack and things like that, you can do that. I have a day pack that I use, and I like it a lot. No, I don't take a big pack. I take a little pack. So, I mean, if you got a new pack and you want to try it out, yeah, definitely, you could put it on. I see people out at the metro parks with packs on. It's very clear they're training for something, or they're getting used to a new pack. So, not a bad thing to do. And again, I want to get us together so we can talk about gear in person, and you can put your packs on and you can feel what it feels like. You can see what gear is available, and we can talk about this stuff in real time. But I called, they're not renting group facilities at the state parks yet, but Matt and I were talking just a little bit ago, thinking that might loosen up in about a month, so that would be nice. The alternative is that we get in the where Columbus Outdoor Pursuits is currently. There's a yard, there's a lot in there, and we could get together outside there and go through equipment and talk about that stuff. So and I can't tell you, don't skimp on calories. Don't think you're going to lose 10 pounds when you're out on the trail. You might anyway, but take as much calorie dense foods are extremely important for you to feel good, and you need to eat frequently, especially when you're in the mountains and up at elevation, or doing 20 to 30 mile days, even on a moderate trail. So anything else? And drink water.
We've seen the Boy Scouts the last 2 weekends out at High Banks practicing their hiking
There you go. See,
with full gear, the whole troop.
with full gear. Yeah. And
Getting ready for Philmont.
Say what?
Getting ready for Philmont.
That's true. Yes. Yes. And Janice was on the last call we had, and she's I think she's taking a cruise out there. So yeah. Let's see what's next. Food and water. Let's see again. God, let's do this again. Okay. Let's see what they say. Yeah, we know this. 2 pounds of food per day. That's a lot, but that's true. It really, again, go for calorie dense foods. Sometimes, it's, you can get just as many calories, but it won't be as volume wise, won't be as much. So yeah. I'm a big believer in Cliff bars too. And actually I've made my own bars before, and they're delicious and easy to do. And again, very calorie dense. You can add peanut butter. It's just, they're pretty spectacular. Let's see what's next. Navigating in winter. Oh, let's see if I can move this down so we can see what they've got to say. Oh crap, sorry. They give me a navigational bar, but it disappears if I'm not quick. There it is. Okay, there you go. I have been stuck in snow more than once. It's very difficult you really, navigation is probably the hardest thing. You really have to know where you're going, and this is stuff to think about. Yeah, research your route, focus on the big picture, travel slowly. Don't travel slowly. Don't trust tracks because you don't know whether those people know where they're going. Search for trails. Sometimes you can find trails. Sometimes, it'll be an intermittent snow and you can still see evidence of trail. Yeah, watch out for avalanche. I don't think we have to worry about that too much when you're doing spring and fall. That's really a lot of people who are doing backcountry skiing. Obviously, there's been a lot of avalanches this year. Yep, find the path of least. Yeah, watch out for thin ice. Frozen lakes, time it right, travel smart. Yeah, use snowshoes. We're not going to worry too much about this at this point. But it does happen that you get stuck. You get that happened to us more than once, traversing the back of the Tetons, and you just have to be careful. Finding water in the desert. We talked about that a little bit, didn't we? Let's see what they say. Sorry, I have to do this because that damn bar Okay. I have to move quickly. Shit. Excuse my French.
Keep Giardo
There we go. There we are. Okay, I got it.
restaurant.
Okay, running dry despite your preparation, check these spots. They talk about vegetated areas, and riverbeds, potholes. All my years, we've been able to find water, but then again, we do a lot of planning. If you are mindful about planning when you do a big trip, and you are in an arid area, you make sure that you know where the water is. I've never had to do any of those things. I did find some pretty miserable mud holes in New Mexico.
How does your water system work?
Well, right now I'm using a Sawyer, so you just scoop up the water and you screw the Sawyer on.
Okay.
It works well. I like it. I like the Sawyer. But then again, sometimes you have to put the water through some kind of filter,
Yeah.
and sometimes you don't.
We had trouble with the MSR pump filtration system. It just kept on clogging up.
And you got to take a cleaning system with it.
And you have to clean it with clean water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, don't try the Sawyer or other methods. I've got several I can show you when we finally do get together. So let's see what we got. Coastal travel. I wish Mary Maloney was on this trip, because on this call as she was last time, because she has done the coastal trail, and I'm forgetting the name of it. It's actually, it can be quite treacherous because you really have to know your tides, and it can be very dangerous. See if I can move this thing up here. Come on, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, guidelines on starting small. Well, we're going to do that, right? Again, I would strongly suggest during the week going to the Zaleski Backpack Trail across the street from Lake Hope. Shawnee is a little bit more difficult. There are other trails in the Wayne National Forest. You have to be careful of water sources there, though, because of the mining that went out there. There the possibility of heavy metals in the water, so you might have to pack in all your water. But yeah, start small and easily recognizable trails and then get your sea legs underneath you, and then you can try for more challenging terrain. Okay, here we get into the basic navigation. This is about topo maps and such.
Knowing how to hike is one thing, but knowing how to find out where you are and how to get home safely if you get lost is another. In this section, we'll go over basic navigational skills. We'll teach you how to read topographical map, pair it with your compass, and give you some useful tips and tricks to help you get home safely should you get lost. Let's dive in.
Next page. Use a map. I told you this earlier. Yes, please do that. It's a smart thing to do. Pace yourself. Yes, that's a good idea. We talked about that too. Don't do too much. Okay. All about maps. I don't know about these things here. Let's see what this says. Does this show anything? Let's see. There we go. Maybe
It's 8 o'clock.
Oh, we've already burnt 1 hour here. Maybe you didn't have time to research your route ahead of time. Maybe you figured you were only going on an easy day hike, so you didn't need a map and compass. Maybe you just forgot to pack your navigation essentials. No matter what the excuse, setting out, never set out without a map. Of course, carrying a map, compass, or GPS isn't going to help you. If you don't know how to use them, you should know how to use them. Bending the map, that's interesting. Convincing yourself that the surrounding terrain matches what you expect to find from your map rather than looking at the actual landscape and the actual map. Yes, yes. Over relying on technology, we talked about that too. Smartwatches and All Trails and Gaia. Yeah, I mean, they're great, but boy, if they mess up, it's big time. Getting lazy about checking the map, especially if you're in unfamiliar territory. And plowing ahead, that's a good way. That's a good way to get lost. So just, make sure you're mindful. There we go. Types of maps, you know about this. There's a topo, there's a road map, and there's a trail map. These are about topographic map symbols. See here. I've thought we should talk about doing a navigation course possibly in the future, because this is dense pack. There's a lot of information here, and maybe they have a backpacker has a whole just navigation, and I took one at Metro Parks with a geocacher kind of guy, and it was really very interesting, and we had a chance to go out and spend some time out fiddling with our with the map and compass. So here we go. Let's see if we can get this to go.
The key to successfully reading your topographical map is understanding contour lines. Contour lines are all those crazy brown lines all over the map. A contour line represents equal points of elevation. So every piece of land that contour line touches is at the same elevation. Now, in between each of those brown lines is what we refer to as the contour interval. On most maps, this contour interval is going to be 40 feet. If you have a map with a different contour interval, it'll be listed in the bottom right-hand corner underneath the scale bar of your map. Keep in mind when you're looking at these lines that it's 40 vertical feet of elevation change, has nothing to do with linear distance. You might notice as you look at your contour lines that some are actually labeled and are a darker brown than other lines. These are called index contours, and they're set every 200 feet, just to make it easier for us to count elevation, gain, and loss. If you're in an area with very little topographical change, then the map maker might actually put in what we call supplementary contour lines, which will be a dashed brown line at half of whatever the contour interval on that map is. So if I had a supplementary contour line in Colorado, it will be set at 20 feet. Contour lines can look confusing and overwhelming on your map, so we'll break it down for you and use this rock as an example. From the lowest point of elevation, I can start drawing contour lines at about 6 inches up this rock, keeping the lines at the same elevation the entire time. As I move up the rock, it starts to hang out over the top a little bit. We call that an overhang. And what happens when features overhang is that the contour lines merge together. And you can actually see a bunch of different brown contour lines becoming one at that point. Now they'll always resurface as their own individual contour line further down the land feature. Continuing up this feature just about every 6 inches. Once I get to the top, my contour line is going to become a circle. And that marks the peak, the highest point of elevation of my rock. You might notice that moving up features on your map or down features, your contour lines look a little bit like V's. You can make a V with your hands. And then if you flip it on your side, I think it looks a little bit like a Pac-Man guy. So a way that I use to determine if my contour lines are going uphill or downhill is to have my Pac-Man, and it's munching as it goes up, and they like to eat peaks. So the apex of my V, or the Pac-Man's mouth, is going to be moving uphill towards the peak. Now when it moves downhill, just getting a good drink of water usually, going downhill, the apex of the V pointing towards the valley or the drainage. A great way to visualize how the map is representing the landscape around you is to use what we call knuckle mountain. It's going to be a 3-dimensional representation of a mountain. We'll draw it on your hand. And then once you flatten your hand out, you'll see the 2-dimensional representation of that same mountain. Mastering contour lines is the best way to begin to understand the language of topographical maps. And as you start to apply this knowledge to other topographical maps, maybe of places you've never been, you'll start to come up with your own visualizations of what that landscape looks like, which will be really inspiring as you're planning your next adventure.
That was kind of fun. I kind of like the knuckle map. It's an interesting way to try to explain some pretty difficult stuff. Do we want to do this? Does anybody want to do this? Or should we just go on to the next one?
Let's go on, Mary Ellen. This is advanced stuff.
It sure is. We should do a whole thing on this. I should talk to Metro Parks and see if the person who was teaching the basic navigation course there is still doing it. So there's your compass. I always have a map and compass. You got to know which way you're going. Declination is something that's very important to know about. It has to do with adjusting your compass to how much true north versus magnetic north differs depending on where you are in the world. So yeah, out west it's more than it is here. That's one thing to know. Orienting your map. Yeah, this is big stuff. There's your global positioning system, or GPS. Important to have those things. I do not have one at this point, but never know. I've thought about getting one. Is anybody, did Dick and Annette, did you buy one of these?
No, we do not have one for hiking.
Not yet.
We have a little,
Hmm.
we have compasses, but not that.
Yeah, map and compass. That's like I said, that's important. Okay, this is about getting lost.
So you got lost, or at least a little turned around. Don't panic. The first thing to do is to decide whether you feel confident backtracking. You'll want to try to backtrack to the last place where you knew where you were. That might have been the trail, or it might have been your last landmark. If you feel confident trying to backtrack, do it. If you don't, then that's okay. You can stay where you are. First, try to pinpoint your location. Take note of the land features around you, and you might be able to triangulate your location, or at least deduce where you are or where you're not. And that can help you decide what to do next. The next thing to ask yourself is whether or not you left a plan with somebody back home, and how long you have before somebody comes to look for you. Is it a few hours, or is it a few days? If it's a few days, then that's going to change your decision-making process. The next thing to consider is what is happening with the weather. Is the weather stable, or is there a blizzard coming in? If you're at risk of getting hypothermic by staying put, then you're going to need to move. Look at your map and try to make a decision of what direction you think is going to be the most efficient way to get out, or at least get into a more sheltered area. In most situations, staying put is your safest option, mostly because people who are wandering around in circles are a lot harder to find. So once you're staying put, you're going to want to make sure you've got enough food, water, and warmth to wait it out for a few hours. Then you'll start focusing on how to communicate your position or send a distress signal. I always carry a whistle with me in the backcountry, and if you ever get unsure of your direction, you can blow your whistle in 3 short blasts. 3 short blasts is the universal distress call. After you've blown 3 short blasts, you'll pause for at least a minute and wait and see if there's a response. And then you'll do it again and again. So if you know that someone will be looking for you in just a few hours, you can hold off on whistle blasts until they're going to be starting to look for you. Other ways to signal would be using something shiny like the mirror on your compass to send off a reflection from the sun. You can also use green boughs of trees or foliage to send up a smoky fire, if you can do so without letting the fire get out of control and become a wildfire. As you're staying in one place, waiting for someone to find you, you might find yourself getting stressed or wondering if somebody is really coming to find you. You might also get physically uncomfortable. You might feel really hungry. You might feel really cold, or you might even just feel really scared. Don't let these feelings of stress and discomfort push you into making unsound or panicked decisions. Any decision you make from here on out should be done with sound logic behind it and with the purpose of getting yourself found and home safely.
Yeah. Good stuff to know. Yeah, if all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where, wait a minute, I think I'm not in the right spot, to try to go back to where you knew you were in the right spot first, and then you can kind of sort it out from there. Oftentimes there are trails. There are a lot of people who like to do off trail work. I like trails. I kind of like to know where I'm going. When you're up high, and you're above tree line, you can kind of see which drainage, where you've been and where you're going. When you're down in the trees, it's much more difficult to navigate in that way from sight. So you have to be you have to have a general idea, and you have to know what direction you're going into. So if you feel that you should have been on trail and you've lost the trail, all of a sudden try to go back to where you saw that last blaze, or where you saw the last hint of a trail, and see if you can follow it from there. And don't get scared. Most people who get a little bit lost get found really quickly. Prepare for the worst, always good to do. Like I said, make sure somebody knows where you are.
Yeah, if you're a beginner, you may be out the first several times with a group. So it's kind of very unlikely that you would get lost unless you separate yourself.
Right.
These are advanced concepts, I think, for people who might be going one-on-one, or maybe split off from a partner for a while. But
well, we were in southern Colorado, and I think we were having some bad weather, so we set up camp. And one of my friends decided to go for just to hike around a little bit. She almost got lost. She started to get lost. She didn't know where she was, and she did it took her several hours, but she figured out her way back. But she was we got her attention, let's say, and it's like, don't be wandering off without letting us know where the hell you're going. So
one of the other things I've encountered that can be very scary, and it's not really a big issue in Ohio, but if you head up into New England, say into the New Hampshire, Vermont, where some of the mountains get above tree line,
yes,
it's just rocky, clouds and fog can roll in really quickly, and then you don't have any visibility, and that can happen.
Yes,
and
it can.
You really need to pay attention if you're up that high.
Didn't you do White Mountain, Matt?
Yes, I've been in the White Mountains quite a bit.
Yeah. That's I have heard that. I've been hiking up high in Ireland, and had the fog come in and then the rain. And the good news is, on the trail, we would have lost the trail entirely, but they had you could tell they were used to the fog, because there were a lot of sticks up to mark the territory that we should be walking in. So that was a good thing. Yeah, in the Barra Peninsula in Ireland. Okay, so whistle, signal mirror, and a smoky fire, right? And there's your emergency devices that we were talking about. Yes, I got to go back again to see. No, let's see if I can do it this way. Yes, I can. Okay. Learn more about navigation. They have a backcountry navigation course. And we should ask if Right on Trek is going to be doing any of this. Okay, choosing a campsite. Should we be watching the time here? We've how much more do you want to do?
I think we're good to 8:30.
Good to
We've got
8:30.
at least 15 more minutes, I think, before people start to fire
Yeah.
out.
Get cross-eyed. There a couple things. This is I bought this course. It's mine. We can share it at another time when we can actually get together at the COP office. And again, Right on Trek has got. I don't have the itinerary of the things they're going to be offering once every month here going forward. We're also talking about getting together to do a September hike at the Pictured Rocks. Up on the Lake Superior. That would be a 4-day, 3-night outing and could be lots of fun. Hopefully we'll be able to get out more than that here in Ohio before it gets way too hot. West Virginia is also a place to go when it gets too hot here because it's a little higher elevation. And Pennsylvania is good, you know, and these are all relatively close. There's some things in Michigan too that probably Matt knows about. Besides Pictured Rocks, which is Pictured Rocks is 12 hours away, isn't it?
It is. We've got great hiking right here in Ohio to get your feet wet.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so let's go finding your campsite.
When you're car camping, someone else has already made a lot of decisions for you. You pull up in your car and there's a flat designated spot to set up your tent. There's a campfire ring all set up and maybe even a picnic table. When you're backpacking, you get to make all those decisions on your own. But sometimes when you're tired after a long day of hiking, you might be tempted to cut some corners. In this section, I'll help streamline that decision-making process for you and help you decide which factors are the most important to consider when you're choosing your campsite. Let's get started. When you're choosing your campsite in the backcountry, you have a ton of options available to you. Now, luckily, there might already be some decisions made for you. The first of these is, where do you camp in relation to water? I like to camp at least 200 feet away from my water source. That's going to preserve the integrity of the water source for anybody who might be camping downstream of me and for posterity. Another thing you need to make sure to do is read your permit. You should be getting your permit either when you leave the trailhead or before in the planning stages of your trip. And some land use areas will stipulate camping regulations. Some will say you should camp 200 feet away from the trail, and some might say you should only camp in designated areas. When you're looking at your exact spot, I like to factor in the 4 W's. The first is water, which we've already talked about. The second is wind. You want to be somewhat sheltered from the wind. Right now I'm camped in a narrow valley, which could potentially turn into a wind tunnel, but with the direction the wind's coming right now, I think I'm going to be all right for the night. Another W is watchers. I like to be camped pretty far away from the other users of the backcountry, just to keep my wilderness experience pristine. And I don't really want to force my camping technique into other people's backcountry experience either. Another W is widow makers. You want to camp away from any dead trees or trees that have dead branches on them, because if those were to fall, you're going to be asleep right in the line of fire. So those 4 W's are water, wind, watchers, and widow makers. Last but not least, definitely not least, you want to factor in the levelness of your campground. You don't want to sleep at the bottom of a hill because then water will run off towards you if it rains. And you want to sleep on a fairly flat surface. If you're even on somewhat of a slope, you're going to end up off your sleeping pad in the middle of the night and freezing cold, or you might even end up curled up in the corner of your tent. And this is only a mistake you're going to make once. When you're tired after your long day's hike, it can be a lot to ask to spend time and energy trying to find that perfect site. But I promise, when you find the ideal spot for your group or yourself, it's well worth it.
Okay. I'm thinking setting up camp. Well, you kind of know how this works, right? Somebody wanted to know about pooping in the woods, and there is a pooping in the woods section. Would you like me to forward to that?
Yes.
Right.
Now, I have a question.
Yes.
Have you ever been tempted, especially early on in your backpacking life, to camp right up next to that gurgling stream?
Yes and no. We were relatively, one time in West Virginia, we were relatively close to a stream. But one of the things you need to know is that you want to be high enough, because that's the coldest place. When stuff, when it settles down early in the morning and you might get moisture or fog or something like that, it's going to settle right down on you. I'd rather be a little bit higher than where she is. I might be up on that bench right there. See where she is? Because things are going to settle down in there, and it's going to be colder down there than it would be up there. And she's still got some protection from the wind with those two peaks right there.
You know,
So-
it's tempting when you come into a nice prairie and there's a nice little gentle stream to making a sound, to think you're going to put your tent down next to that and enjoy the sound of this creek. But remember, you're only a thunderstorm away from a flash flood.
There
or a
you go.
raging-
That's the other thing.
raging-
Yeah.
Raging creek. And so you really want to resist that temptation to be right up next to the gurgling brook.
Yeah.
Because if you do have a freak thunderstorm that night or it rains hard, you don't want to be in the middle of that flash flood. Get up away a little bit from the creek with some height, some
Yeah.
elevation to you.
Just a little bit, just to keep you out of that, and again, that terrible fog that might be mighty chilly in the morning. So yeah, let's see if I can go forward and keep going. Bear prevention, we talked a little bit about that. Camp cooking, this is a big section, but I'm going to whiz right through it because we're going to do a whole thing about camp cooking. She has recipes and everything in here, which was very interesting. I thought they were a little bit fussy, but if you're only going to be out for a little bit, you can do a little bit more with your food. Oh crap! Here, there we go. And like I said, we can go through some of this stuff later. And we'll talk all about making food when we do. That's Saturday, April 3rd, isn't it, Matt? Here's some of her recipes.
Yes, it's Saturday, April 3rd. And
I hope it's a rainy
Eric
day.
Boxer from Columbus was with Right on Track. He's going to be doing the cooking demo.
Uh-huh.
And I think if you still might be able to get them to mail you the meals that they're going to cook on that day if you register the next day or two. But they got to get those out in the mail soon to you, and then you could cook along with Eric.
Ugh. There we go. Sacred socks. She keeps socks in her, here we go, bathroom and hygiene. She keeps socks in her backpack, which I find interesting. I told you always want to have warm socks on at night anyway. Okay, bathroom and hygiene. Let's talk about pooping in the woods.
Going to the bathroom in the backcountry can be a challenging experience for even the most seasoned hikers. In this section, we'll go over the do's and don'ts of going about your business and tips and tricks for how to keep yourself feeling like you've just showered, even on day 5. Let's get to it.
Okay. Let's see if I can, this thing, crap. Sorry, I have to do this and then I have to go like this so I can grab, no, it's not showing up. There's a bar that shows up, not always. And I have to catch it right away or else I can't go down. What does she say? Whenever you go to the bathroom, cook, wash your hands, or set up camp, you should stay 200 feet away from water, trails, and other campers. There are a few reasons for the distance. For one, poop is gross and no one wants a cat hole near their campsite, or to see toilet paper, by the way, even a deep one. And no one wants to start digging their own cat hole just to find someone else was there first. So 200 feet gives campers plenty of room to disperse. However, the more important scientific reason for the 200-foot rule is that human waste contains pathogens, transfer of which causes more illnesses in the backcountry than any other source of germs. Microbes in the soil break those pathogens down. That's why we bury our poop. But that process takes a while, and every time it rains, water flows through your cat hole and into the surrounding soil, carrying bacteria with it. A buffer of 200 feet from water sources and other things gives seepage through enough space to filter through the ground and become processed and sanitized by soil microbes before it reaches water sources and public areas. So there you go. And yeah. She says she prefers not to use toilet paper. And I agree with that to a degree. She likes to use, some people use rocks and some people use leaves. I used leaves one time and I got little prickers on my rear end and it was not a happy experience. I'll show you what I do, but let's get through this first.
So when it's time for you to go to the bathroom, a couple things to keep in mind when you're picking your spot. First is that you've got to be at least 200 feet away from camp, preferably out of eye shot, earshot. That's just kind of a social expectation. Secondly, you want to be at least 200 feet away from water. And that's really important for the leave no trace ethics that we're trying to promote. When you found your nice secluded spot, go ahead and start digging. I'm going to use a trowel. My trowel blade is 6 inches long, which makes it really easy to tell that I've gone 6 inches deep, which is our optimal goal. If you don't have a trowel or you left it at home or it broke or for whatever reason you left it at camp, you can use a strong stick or some rocks to dig this hole. So I'm just going to start scooping out dirt. And like I said, you want to be 6 inches deep. The reason for that is that all the little microbes that are going to help decompose your deposit live about 6 inches in most soil types. So if you do a shallow, what we call a surface dump, then it's going to take a lot longer to decompose than if you actually go 6 inches deep. And then as soon as I can't see the blade of my shovel in my hole, then I know I've dug deep enough. Another thing to keep in mind while you're digging is that your hole's got to be wide enough unless you have really good aim. Right. So the hole isn't really something you should do in a hurry. In fact, a lot of times I'll even pre-dig just so I don't have a panicked rush. All right, once your hole is deep enough, wide enough, set the trowel to the side, do your business, and then it's time to cover it back up. Now, whatever you use to wipe with is going to go in this hole as well. That refers to natural toilet paper. So you can use things like smooth rocks from the river, smooth sticks, leaves that you know are not poisonous. All of that would go in this hole. If you're using toilet paper or a baby wipe, then that needs to be carried out with you. The microbes in the soil are not used to those materials and they're not going to break it down fast at all. So even though it's buried, it's still being left in the environment and is going to be there for basically all eternity. So when you're done, go ahead, cover up your hole. If I'm camping with a lot of people, then I'm going to try and make it fairly obvious that I just dug here because I don't want somebody else to dig in the same spot. So I might stick a stick in my hole right upright so that nobody else goes digging right in that same area. And you might have noticed that my trowel never came near my deposit. So the trowel, even though it's covered in dirt, is technically totally clean. And that's really important that everyone in your group knows that to keep your level of sanitation up. Pooping in the woods is something a lot of people get really anxious about. But if you follow these simple steps, the next time you go backpacking, it just won't be that big of a deal.
Yep. It's just not that big a deal. Although I do have friends that will hold the entire backpacking trip, and I don't know how they do that because I can't. Here's what I do. I have a baggie, right? And inside that baggie is another baggie. I have tissues. And I always pack these things out. I mean, when we did the John Muir Trail, I was running into toilet paper everywhere. It was really gross. So I will go, I will wipe, and I put the dirty ones in here and pack them out. Now, if you happen to have an opportunity, sometimes you can't have a campfire at your campsite. If you have an opportunity to have a campfire, you can occasionally burn these and get that, and then they're gone. But that's what I do. I put the dirty ones in there and we just pack it out. Now, one other important thing about pooping in the woods is to keep your bottom clean. Actually, here, I really like wet ones, individual wet ones. And at least once a day, you need to make sure you're cleaning your bottom, because you don't want to get a chapped rear end, which can happen if you're not entirely clean. So that's my process, and I burn those, either burn those or pack them out. And I usually have it, I budget about 2 a day of these individual wet wipes, and that works well. So that's my process. I think she goes into peeing in the woods and also having your period in the woods. Would that be instructive and helpful?
Before you go on to that, when we hiked at Mount Whitney and got a permit to go in,
Yes, you got
they
a
did
bag.
not let you.
Yeah, you got a bag. Yeah.
Yeah, you got the wag bag.
Yeah,
And then you use that
absolutely.
instead because they didn't let you use, because it was too rocky and everything else.
Yeah,
It's carried it all out. And it worked pretty well. I had an extra Ziploc bag and put the whole bag inside of that. You couldn't smell anything.
I probably shouldn't get into particulars, but sometimes when you're above 10,000 feet for more than one day or several days, you might have some digestive upset, and you might get to a point where you have to use a wag bag, and then you're using the wag bag frequently. So yeah, I tend to get a little digestive upset if depending, but when I'm up high, way high, 10,000 or more. That made it not the best, not the most pleasant experience, but I was happy to keep that out of nature's way there. Even though
I think Right on Trek is going to have a session maybe later in the summer about hygiene in the woods, and it may be even focused on feminine hygiene. I think Carrie discussed that with me briefly. So that might be an opportunity for the women to sort of get together and learn a little more.
Yeah, they do talk about several things here. One thing that is new that people are doing is using a bandana for a wipe cloth that you use to wipe if you have to urinate on the trail. And then they put it on the outside of their pack, and once it dries and it gets in the sun, it's basically sanitized. There's also a company that makes something called Kula cloth now, which is designed for women to use for urinating on the trail. And then the period thing, I mean, I could go through that, or we could just call it a day at this point. Where are we? 8:32.
I have one quick question.
Yes.
I thought I saw in REI some like biodegradable toilet paper.
No, none of it is biodegradable. Don't trust it. Pack it in, pack it out. But
Okay.
put it in here, and I haven't tried the Kula cloth yet, but yeah. They also say that soap is biodegradable too, but you have to be very careful on soap and getting into natural streams and putting that soap in natural streams. Do not do it, because you're messing things up. If you happen to use soap in a container and you're washing your dishes, dump that water away from the water source. Don't put it back in the water, and don't put that soap in the water.
I think, Mary Ellen, I think what I realized early on when I learned to backpack is, you're just, especially if you go out for more than one night, you're just going to have to get a little comfortable with the fact that you're not going to be showered. You're not going to feel quite the same. And that can be an uncomfortable feeling at first.
Yeah.
But you'll get used to it. It's okay after the first time or two you do it, and you do get used to the fact that you're not going to feel like you just shaved and had hairspray put on.
Right. I remember the first time I was in the winds, we were at the Big Sandy opening, and it was before we'd gone out, and we camped there overnight to get ready to hit the trail. And I was watching these people coming in after spending days and days on the trail. Well, they looked pretty horrible, but their face actually looked like they'd seen the face of God. They were awestruck by their time in the mountains and enjoying nature and being out there. So is it worth it? Is it worth it to be a little gross, and to go out there and really be a part of all this and see things that very few other people can see because it's nowhere near a roadway. It's worth it. It's worth it to get out there. And I remember seeing those people's faces and I thought, oh, wow, they look gobsmacked. It was really inspiring. Another time that, and then we'll probably conclude, I've done about 400 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail, and including the John Muir Trail, which is 218 miles. And then we went up to the northern terminus of the Pacific Crest Trail and walked back as people were completing the 2,100 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail. I saw those people's faces. I saw the notes they were leaving for one another on the trail, and just sort of felt their joy for the accomplishment that they had done and their time being out there at one with nature. And it was awe-inspiring. And so I give a little bit of money every year to the Pacific Crest Trail Association so that we can continue to offer those types of opportunities to people. And I even had some trail magic. I came along, there was one Triple Crowner, a person who had done the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and the Continental Divide Trail. And she was there feeding hikers. And we said, we're not through hiking. We're going to be done here in just a little bit. And she invited us over. She showed us the tent that she used when she was on the trail. And, they had beer, which was fabulous. And, what would you like? Would you like a hot dog? Would you like a hamburger? What would you like? It was just lovely. And I tried to give them some money. No money. So that's another reason I certainly give to the Pacific Crest Trail, and I encourage, supporting Columbus Outdoor Pursuits and other people who are trying to help us get out there and enjoy nature. So let's figure out what we're doing next. I don't know exactly what. I think that we have to have a gathering and talk more about gear, and maybe we should wait until we can get a group campsite locally and go out there and actually spend a little time with Campcraft and talk about gear, backpacking gear. And then next thing, maybe during the week Zaleski outing to get out.
Mary Ellen, I will email the upcoming Zoom sessions that Right on Trek is going to do.
Good.
And as the summer progresses and we plan stuff,
Yes.
I'll make sure I email the participants of this Zoom session any
Yes.
trips that come together, so you can join if you want to.
Yeah, good. That should be a lot of fun. And, we're trying to get stuff going again here. Columbus Outdoor Pursuits has really focused a lot on biking in recent years, and it's up to volunteers to make things happen if we want to have other activities involved with Columbus Outdoor Pursuits. So that's my effort here to try to get backpacking going. And if you've got we've also got kayaking and canoeing, and we hope to have a lot more activities. We used to have caving, we used to have trail running, we used to have a lot of stuff. So if you have an activity that that you'd like to share, certainly speak up, talk to Matt and the rest of us, and let's see if we can get things going. So thanks for joining us. Yes, Matt.
One activity that's new, it may be a strange activity if you've never heard of it. Late April, just a couple days after Earth Day, I think it's Saturday, April 24th, we have teamed up with Columbus Running Company.
Yeah.
And we're going to be doing plogging.
Yes.
Just jogging or even walking and picking up trash, litter. Yeah. And so we'll have 3 or 4 locations around central Ohio. We'll be doing that.
I think that's a great thing. That should be loads of fun. And
free, and it's 2 hours of making a difference.
There you go. Yeah, that's a smart thing to do. Boy, right now we're thinking about it because we see it all on the roadways. Early spring is always terrible litter time. So, let's do our part to make things more beautiful. And when you're out there on the trail and you see something on the trail, pick it up. Pick it up.
Did you mention something about Picture Rocks in September?
September. That's with the tentative dates there. Yes. Yeah. You want to do it?
If we're not in Italy bicycling, yes.
I don't know. I don't know whether we can get out of the United States. I don't know whether they want us in Italy. You know,
Right now, no.
yeah, well, it could change. It could change, but keep your fingers crossed there, and we can always be Plan B, right?
Yep.
Okay, and we'll try to get some other things going. We had to close down some stuff we were going to do when the pandemic hit. You know, we had some West Virginia hikes planned and such, and it just and we had a Kentucky hike, I think, and it just wasn't going to happen because we can't really gather. But that should be loosening up pretty soon. So yeah, so thanks for joining us. I very much appreciate it. Let's see what we can do to get out there. And again, if you want to get out and get some good day hiking in on some decent trails, and or you feel confident enough to get out and spend one night out in the woods, the Zaleski Backpack Trail is a lovely place to start. It's right across the street from Lake Hope, and you can Google it and find a map, and it's very well marked. Also, there's Shawnee down in Portsmouth. It's a little more challenging, but it's also another opportunity only 2 hours away to get out and see some nature here in Ohio. So maybe we'll be able to pull something like that together before too long as well.
Thank you, Mary Ellen, and
Yes.
thank you, Matt.
Yes.
Most welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to everybody.
Thank you both.
All right.
Thank you. You know, at least one person had trouble getting on, so this has been recorded. And I'll send everyone the recording and post it on our YouTube channel so that you can watch it separately if you want.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
Good. Yes. Thanks to all of you. Very much appreciated.
Thanks, Mary Ellen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.